Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Robertson and welcome to a quick channel update video for Halloween 2021. As most of you have already noticed, this channel has been fairly quiet lately, but that's only because I've been extremely busy, both with work and also with revisiting some of the older titles that have been updated recently, such as Empyrion, Galactic Survival, Stormworks and Barotrauma. Speaking of Stormworks, just last month the devs released their weapons DLC called Stormworks Search and Destroy, and so far the feedback appears to be relatively positive. There's still a whole load of bugs to work through, and the multiplayer side is still quite laggy, but considering that this was a bonus add-on for what is essentially a sandbox search and rescue game, they've done a pretty good job so far. As not only have they added a variety of both vehicle-mounted and small arms weaponry, but they've also included a new Conquest game mode where you've got to seize the various bases and islands throughout the world that belong to the AI, whilst defending your own against a variety of aircraft, ships, and ground vehicles. And because this DLC is now more than a month old, we're starting to see some really impressive creations appearing on the workshop, including radar-guided missiles with proximity fuses, stabilised autocannons, and even fully functional combat mechs of all things. And since it's already under $10 right now, it's definitely worth checking out. Especially if, like me, you already own the base game. There's also been some recent developments too with regards to Space Engineers, with the first few teasers of what we can expect in their next Warfare pack being shown on our latest livestream, including a major rework of the ship-to-ship combat mechanics, with all the base weapons being given a significant range boost. They also showed some new target lead indicators on the HUD, which will definitely make small craft dogfighting much more fun, both while manoeuvring in an atmosphere and outer space. And perhaps the most significant teaser of them all, a large grid railgun, which seems to suggest that we can expect some half-decent capital ship weaponry in the very near future. And it also means I can add them to the Star Cruisers I already have on the workshop and Mod.io. Whether or not Keen Software House managed to find some way of dealing with the turret spam I mentioned in a previous video remains to be seen, as having longer ranges on all the base weapons means that there's going to be a substantial load increase on both our CPUs and the netcode, especially when all those projectiles are flying around. Now, you have to remember that it's still early days at the moment, so there's still been no word on anything else coming in the next update, apart from the usual cosmetic filler of course, with regards to the new bridge windows. But as I said in the last video, I remain cautiously optimistic. More so since I've kind of been holding off on starting work on my next Space Engineer series until an official pack like this was released. So, as I've said before, here's hoping they don't screw it up. In other news, Barotrauma has received yet another update. This one is titled Among the Ancients, and as well as completely overhauling the alien ruins, it also adds reworked visuals and improves the character customization for the player characters. It adds a talent system, allowing you to unlock skill specializations during that campaign, and also adds some much needed fixes, improvements, and a few more toys for you to play with, including an assault rifle, a prototype energy weapon, and an automatic shotgun to use against the hostile denizens of the European Abyss. Now, this was something of a coincidence, as I've also just released a pirate version of the Triton attack submarine for Barotrauma as a Halloween bonus gift for all my followers and subscribers that actually own a copy of the game. So it looks like those of you that play this game as well have two welcome surprises for the price of one this Halloween. As I mentioned earlier, I've come back to take another look at Empyrion Galactic Survival now that it's reached version 1.6, and so far it's actually been good fun. Despite some visual similarities, it's a very different game from Space Engineers. While the building side may be a lot more simplistic, as you don't get to use conveyors etc, it does provide a stronger survival experience, and a galaxy that just feels more alive and dynamic. But it's not without its flaws, as there are some severe limitations due to it being a game based on the Unity engine, such as the inability to walk around on moving grids, separate playing fields for space and each planet's surface, and most of all, a severely restricted ability to mod anything in the game other than the config files. But this is most likely because the developers have leased out the Unity engine and the terms and conditions they are bound by prevent them from letting any third parties, including those who have purchased the game, modify the assets used in their Unity project. This is a shame, but as they say, it is what it is. But despite those limitations, there are a couple of community-created scenarios out there that are extremely well done and make the most of the limited ability to mod the game, namely Project Eden by Revian and Reforged Galaxy by Vermilion. There is even a scenario that combines the two called Reforged Eden, but I'd only really recommend that to either large groups of cooperative players or somebody who's exceptionally experienced in Empyrion Galactic Survival. What I tended to find was that whilst it did contain a lot of what I liked about the two, it also had a lot of the things I wasn't too keen on, and, as I said earlier, is designed mainly to cater for larger groups of players. As a result, a lot of the bases and space stations that you can attack, called POIs in Empyrion, have an increased spawn rate and tougher enemies that sometimes spawn in the same room, so those of you that prefer to play solo, or with just a friend or two, may find it a little on the difficult side, or may be put off by the higher level of grinding required for resources, which sometimes makes it feel more like you're playing in an MMO rather than a single player adventure game. But at the end of the day, that may well be the kind of players that it's aimed at. I myself much prefer Project Eden to Reforged Galaxy, or Reforged Eden, but I do like a lot of the changes that were made in that scenario. So for my own personal use, I play a slightly modified version of Project Eden where I've edited the config files to include things like the AI behavioural changes, small vessel laser turrets, crew that reduce CPU usage, and a few other features from Reforged Eden, whilst keeping the vanilla POIs, main quest, side missions and everything else. At the moment it sits in its own little folder called Project Eden Plus. And before anyone asks, no, I will not be releasing this to the public, it's for personal use only, because if either Revian or Vermilion found out what I've done to their precious creations, yeah, they'd probably go nuts. And considering how many fellow content creators I've already angered this year because of my space warfare videos, I'd rather not add any more to that list. Which reminds me, speaking of space warfare, and the sci-fi tropes associated with it, Empyrion Galactic Survival unfortunately has its fair share. Including turret spam, short-ranged weaponry, weak missiles, exposed bridges filled with crew, starfighters, yep, thanks in part to the engine limitations, Empyrion has them all, more so than space engineers. But the good news is they don't distract you too much from the overall experience and sense of immersion in what is, for the most part, a very solid and enjoyable game. Anyway, this is just a channel update video, but if there is enough interest, then I might go into a more in-depth review of both Project Eden and Reforged Galaxy at some point in the future, but suffice to say that a lot of hard work has gone into them by the respective authors, and I definitely recommend playing them both, especially if you've already played vanilla Empyrion to death and are looking for something new. Well everyone, it's time to wrap things up for the evening. Unfortunately, there is no Q&A segment in tonight's video as I'm trying to save up all the best questions for the next channel update video, which I plan on releasing at around Christmas time. So if you've got anything you'd like to ask, then please feel free to leave it in the comment section below, and as always, I'll choose the best ones for the next video and I'll try to answer them as best I can. Just remember to make sure that you highlight your question as a Q&A one and not a general one, otherwise I might actually respond to it in the comment section straight away, much to the disappointment of everyone involved. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes tonight's channel update video. Thank you all for watching and I wish you all the very best, and I hope you don't scare yourselves too much this Halloween. So until next time, this is Robertson, signing off.